Welcome to Trashmagination, a podcast about reimagining trash. I'm Carla Brown. Today's episode is about robot sculptures made from recycled materials. Many artists take bits of wood or metal tins, add facial features, arms, and legs to make robots. I would consider it a type of global reuse folk art. In today's episode, I'll share my favorite robot sculpture artists, and at the end, I'll share some simpler robot-themed creative reuse activities that you can do even if you don't have a garage full of metal parts to make your own robot sculptures. And you can see images of the artwork that I'm going to describe on my Pinterest board called Recycled Monsters and Robots. Robot sculptures from recycled materials are a great mashup of two very different aesthetics. The streamlined industrial aesthetic from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, combined with the wabi-sabi or vintage aesthetic of folk art. We can also see this type of mashup in steampunk artwork and costumes. If you look at the character Wall-E from the Pixar film, he captures a lot of the aesthetics of these robot sculptures. His body is a cube, his limbs look like they are made from random hinges, and his eyes look like camera parts. He is still functioning when many other similar robots have given out because he surpassed his programming and replaced his broken parts with the broken robots or items that he found while doing his job of crushing trash. Andrew Stanton directed the movie Wall-E, and he talked about how this juxtaposition of old and new is central to the movie. He says, I had always wanted to open with something old-fashioned compared to this apocalyptic, futuristic setting. And that's why in the movie, Wall-E loves watching the video about old French swing music. Since a lot of creative reuse robot sculptures are inspired by industrial design, they often incorporate materials from that time of the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. For example, the bodies tend to be made from objects such as boxes or containers made from tin or wood, such as tin food packaging, and it's even more cool if that box has the branding on it still with that old-timey font or message. That's really popular. For example, it could be old lunch boxes or machine parts. Also, a lot of robots are made out of radios or other items with a lot of dials and switches. And sometimes they are made from bakelite dishes or large metal fire alarms. Their heads tend to be made from objects that have a fun shape, such as metal cookware, maybe funnels, colanders, pails, cake pans, or citrus fruit juicers. Their faces and eyes tend to be made from things that are shaped like eyes or that might contain glass, such as viewfinders, opera glasses, binoculars, cameras, glass bulbs, headlights, and lamps. Even if they do not incorporate glass, almost all robot sculptures use round items like washers or caps for eyes. Their hair, limbs, and other fun details tend to be made from small, fun objects, such as car parts, for example, hubcaps or hood ornaments, cooking utensils like egg beaters, graters, and silverware, watch components, antenna, farm tools, license plates, old metal toys, Scrabble and other game pieces, small wheels, paint brushes, old rulers that fold up, or really any tiny tin box. For example, do you remember when aspirin used to come in tiny tins that snapped shut? I had totally forgotten about this until I saw some robots that incorporated those tiny aspirin tins. When we look at objects, something in our brains causes us to see if they have any facial features. Could be an electrical outlet or a pattern in floor tile. But something about that formation is very satisfying to our brains. And so many robot sculptures build upon this human tendency. So now let's talk about the robot sculpture artists. Something that I observed when researching these artists is that they are often passionate about some other topic that's not completely related to robots, such as cryptids, steampunk, science fiction, and that passion will greatly influence the type of robots that they make. So if you're thinking about making robots, you might think about what other topic you find exciting, and that might give you a starting point for the personality of your robots. Mark May lives in Pennsylvania, and he makes sculptures of robots, as well as cryptids or paranormal creatures such as the Bigfoot or the Yeti. In an interview from January 2020, Mark shares the story behind many of his sculptures, which are based on folk legends from across the United States. Now, I wish when they taught American history in schools, they included some of these folk legends because they're really fun. There are so many legends from each area, and his sculptures are not only fun to view, but they're also a great way to understand American culture. Gordon Bennett lives in New York, and his website is called Bennett Robot Works. And his passion is the industrial design from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. His robots often have only a suggestion of a face. Each of his robots gets a numbered metal tag to show that they are one of a kind. It looks kind of like the type of tag that you might see on an appliance. Anthony Pack lives in Kansas. He incorporates a lot of wood scraps in his sculptures, combining painted wood with assembled objects. His signature style includes really big round eyes and a rectangular red mouth with many pointy white teeth made from wood. He sometimes puts words on his sculptures made from Scrabble tiles or other sources. Robin Davis is our only robot artist today who is a woman, and she's also the first Canadian artist who I will mention. She lives in Ontario. Robin makes mini bots, or pocket-sized robots, and they are adorable. She poses them in situations around her studio and outside, and she takes really cool photos of them. Here are some of the common design elements of her mini bots. Their eyes are made from hexagon bolts. They have an eye screw sticking out of their heads. Their ears are two small screws sticking out. Their mouths are made from a small metal chain, and their chests are often decorated with zipper pulls. Their arms and legs are made from strips of leather, which makes them very posable. Alexi de Villiers lives in Arizona, and he makes robot sculptures from metal cans. He then sells the sculptures and uses the proceeds to buy more food, which he then feeds to elderly homeless people in Phoenix. Alexi has such a tremendous energy. He was raised by a single mom who was good at stretching her food budget. Later, he started working as a cook in the military, and he learned how to cook in quantity. This is such an incredible story of how creative reuse can have a big impact in the community. Nemo Gould lives in California. Many of his sculptures do something that the previous ones do not, which is that they move. And this is called kinetic sculpture. Most robot sculptures attach component togethers by screws and bolts, but Nemo welds recycled pieces together. On his website, you can see photos of his elaborate organizational system where he keeps track of the items that he uses. He calls himself the chairman of the hoard, which speaks to one of the challenges of making sculptures from found objects. He says, "To all you fellow hoarders out there, if you don't know what's buried under that pile of crap in the corner, then it's just garbage." And that is an excellent point and the key to being a productive, creative reuse artist. Nemo has a robust YouTube channel with more than 200 videos showing his sculptures in motion. Todd Sloan lives in Alberta, and his robot sculptures are a mixture of found metal components and other pieces that look like closer to dolls. For example, the body or the head of his robot might look like it came from a doll, which makes his pieces look more realistically human and therefore, I think, more creepy. He also creates clothing for many of his sculptures. He draws robots that look like fashion models called Vogue bots. If you are inspired to make your own robots from recycled materials, consider these recycled robot sculptures as an option to use up lots of bits and bobs around your home while exploring a new art form. You could start by making simple wooden robots. You just get a scrap of wood, paint it a bright color, and then add round washers or screws for eyes, arms, and legs. Add a few letters from an old computer keyboard. Add metal caps, such as bottle caps, or small metal boxes, like Altoid tins. You can make a simple robot that scribbles on paper. What you do is you take a piece of pool noodle, and then you take an engine out of something like an electric toothbrush, and you put it in the center of the pool noodle so it shakes when it turns on. And then you attach markers to the side of the pool noodle with duct tape or elastic bands. Then you put it on a large piece of paper or cardboard, and it will draw. If you want to keep the scribble bots on the paper and not on your floor or table, then you might want to use it inside a pizza box with sides. For our next activity idea, I did this robot creative reuse activity at the Kid Fest in 2017. I designed a little plastic cap robot from 4 gray plastic caps. I drilled the caps with my drill press, and then I would connect the caps together with string that I made from a recycled t-shirt. Each robot was made from 4 caps. I made enough for 500 robots, so that means I drilled 2,000 plastic caps. And I called my little robot Capulet. You can see instructions for how to make your own Capulet robot in the show notes. The next idea is to have a take-apart event. In episode 24, I talked about how to organize a take-apart event for your family or community. Most take-apart events are disassembling modern appliances, so they might not have the right aesthetic that matches the artists I'm talking about today, but you definitely could have a combo event where you take items apart and then you build robots, especially if you supplement the electronic parts with metal packaging that you save separately. If you're looking for a robot-themed art lesson plan, I recommend Cassie Stevens' plans from March 2020 when she did Robot Week. She provides idea sheets for how to draw robots. She makes robot crayon rubbings from cereal boxes, and she shows you how to color on aluminum foil with markers and to make a print from it. Also, I want to tell you about a place that I visited when I was in Ann Arbor, Michigan many years ago. It was called the Liberty Street Robot Supply and Repair, and it was on a main street in Ann Arbor. This store is one of a series of similar stores across the United States, where in the front there is a store selling humorous items, and in the back there is a nonprofit where the people are tutoring kids on reading and other items. The store funds the work at the nonprofit school. I just love this business model. To learn about all the stores in this network, you can visit 826national.org, which gives info about these imaginative stores that are also tutoring centers. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, you would probably also enjoy episode 37, which is about making monsters from recycled materials. In that episode, I share how I helped a middle school class explore the book Frankenstein through creative reuse sculpture. Please let me know about your own favorite robot sculpture artists or your own robot art at trashmagination@gmail.com. Until next time, may you see trash as a source of art in your life.